let's leave all that bad baggage behind. Let's take the good things from 2020 into 2021. Let's board flight number 2021 with a lot of spirit and optimism. I am neither nationalist nor activist. I am only journalist. Bravery is the infrastructure of journalism, as I say. But journalists are losing their spine, and they're losing their bravery, and they're losing their ability to question, and they're losing their ability to be anti-establishment. I feel ashamed, actually, by what I see in the mainstream media. All we see are toadies of the government. Look at the way they're saying, "Hum Godi media se baat nahi karenge. Godi media wapas jao," you know. So the media itself has covered itself in shame. I mean, look at this terrible man whose name we can't mention. The Modi government is disastrous for the media. Worst government for the media. There were 5 of us. I remember there was me, there was Barkha, there was Nidhi, there was Rajdeep, Ravish. I mean, there was a particular campaign to target us. My gender identity was being targeted, and women journalists particularly, there's a problem with. I had threats, I had death threats, I had rape threats, I had gang rape threats. It was unbelievable. The only channel I can think of is NDTV.
I thought you'd say India Today also.
Rajdeep show, 9 to 10.
Yes.
And I think, switch TV off.
Thank you, Sagarika ma'am, for your time. It's a unique part as we're almost closing this year and entering into a new year 2021. Looking forward to it. So how are you feeling?
I just got a very positive sounding WhatsApp message saying flight 2021 is boarding. There's lots of positivity on board. There's a slice of happiness. There's a glass full of spirits. There's a sort of helping of optimism, and also there's an invitation to leave all the baggage of 2020 behind. So I believe that that's a very good way to approach the new year. There's been a lot of bad stuff that's happened in 2020. We've lost loved ones. So many people have been out of livelihoods. But I would just say, let's leave all that bad baggage behind. Let's take the good things from 2020 into 2021. That is the spirit of survival, the spirit of bravery, the spirit of seeing how much our caregivers and healthcare workers are working for us. Let's take all those learnings into 2021, but it's a whole new flight. Let's board flight number 2021 with a lot of spirit and optimism.
Sagarika ma'am, it's so interesting, your journey. I mean, if we look at it, you have had a very different encounter in journalism. You have been someone who enjoyed anchoring, writing. I think you've covered all aspects of journalism. In terms of enjoying it, you have done the field reporting, you have done tough interviews. How are you looking at it today?
Well, I was very fortunate that I got to see the entire range of journalism, because I joined in 1991 and we're now in 2020. And when I first joined the Times of India, they were still printing the newspaper on printing presses. There was I don't know if you even are familiar with that. We used to take out pages on bromide. There used to be typeset, and the paper would print of the rolls, the printing presses would roll. So that is how it was in 1991. And from there, it's really been it's been a 360-degree turn to now the world of digital, the world of instant news, news 360, 24/7 news. So I'm very fortunate that I got to see this big transformation in Indian media. I started as a print journalist in 1991 in Times of India. For me, I think I'm hopeful, but also not hopeful. I'm a mix. It's a mixed bag. Because, at the end of the day, I come from the old school of journalism, which is that we believe in questioning, we believe in holding the powerful to account, we believe in questioning all politicians of whichever stripe. It's not as if you're anti this or anti that, or anti X or anti Y. As I say, I'm neither nationalist nor activist, I'm only journalist. So we come from the school of journalism where we questioned the powerful. We questioned those who were ruling over us. That is the duty of journalists. That is the duty of the institution of the free press. That is what we have grown up believing in, and that is what I have always accepted as my governing lodestar, as my motto: question the powerful, always ask questions, and be fearless. Bravery is the infrastructure of journalism, as I say. So if you're not brave, you're not allowed to ask, you're not inclined to ask questions, then I would say journalism is not for you. Because that's my definition of journalism, is to be out there, is to ask the questions, because the citizen expects that from us. That's what we are there to do on behalf of the citizen. The judiciary is there to implement the law, the legislature is there to make the law, the government, the executive is there to rule, the free press exists to question the powerful. That is how our constitution is made. That is the balance of power of our constitution, of our democracy. So institutionally, we have a responsibility. And that is what I fear is declining. The mainstream media, I believe, has completely abdicated its responsibility at the moment to question, to hold the powerful to account. I feel ashamed, actually, by what I see in the mainstream media. All we see are toadies of the government. We see people who are ready to bend before the ruling dispensation of the day, whichever is the ruling dispensation. It could be somebody in Delhi, or whoever in West Bengal, or whoever in Telangana. But journalists are losing their spine, and they're losing their bravery, and they're losing their ability to question, and they're losing their ability to be anti-establishment. We are anti-establishment. Whoever is the establishment, we are there to question them on behalf of the citizen. And I feel sad that that is no longer happening. But what I feel hopeful about, and I think your generation is going to benefit a lot from this, is the sheer flowering, the astounding kind of efflorescence of the digital journalism. I see young people doing so many different things. I mean, videos, podcasts like you're doing, or all kinds of interview formats, question
The
answer
text
sessions.
format and every viral stuff.
Yes. So I think digital is where the action is, and there's so many lively young names that are there in social media now who are taking forward the spirit of journalism. So I believe they are reason for hope, but mainstream media, I feel very ashamed.
But there's a question there. When you have served into this mainstream media for the longest, and you have been in Network 18 also, and we would go back to that particular incident. I think you've not elaborately spoken about that. When you're saying anti-government, the journalists should question the government establishment. We have seen corporates also take over the freedom of press, and you did raise your voice against it. But is this something new? Because that is how it has been. The job of the journalist is to ask questions, but they do feel the pressure in whichever era it has existed, even in your times. So what is that you think has turned out differently now? Is it just about this Modi government, or it is with every government or corporates taking over the media, freedom of press,
No,
advertising revenue is a question?
yeah, I mean, the Modi government is disastrous for the media. Worst government for the media. Vajpayee was also a BJP prime minister, and he was in government from 1999 to 2004. And we were, at that time, I remember I was in the Indian Express, and we were going at the Vajpayee hammer and tongs every day. There was no such fear. There was no such, sort of that, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen to you if you question the government. I remember going to Vajpayee's house. He used to have these holy millons when he was prime minister, and we would all go, and he used to invite journalists. And and I was in Outlook. I was a part of the founding team of Outlook magazine, and Vinod Mehta and some of us would go to Vajpayee's home. Vinod Mehta would always go, and we would always go, and he'd look at us and say, "Arey bapre, khatra." So he was that kind of prime minister, and we were, there was no element of fear that there was that there is today, where I find journalists are literally scared. People are fearful of even of their lives. And I tell you, in 2014, when I left Network 18, I was in Network 18 from 2005 to 2014.
Yes, totally.
The same corporate was the backer all the way through. I mean, Mr. Ambani was an investor in Network 18, I think from 2010 onwards. And there was no problem. He was the investor, but he never, there was never any
interference at all. Yes,
nothing. There was never any interference. In fact, Mrs. Ambani and Mr. Ambani would come and host. We had this program called Indian of the Year, where they used to come and give out prizes, and it was fine. It was just after 2014, after the arrival of Mr. Modi, that everybody seemed to become do a 360-degree turn, and it was felt that anyone who wasn't just singing the praises of the Modi government all the time, they had to be, they were no longer welcome. I mean, I could have, we could have stayed on, but I could have stayed on, but it was not as if I was asked to leave or I was asked to, go. But it was increasingly clear that I could not do the kind of journalism I wanted to do. I couldn't ask the kind of questions I wanted to ask. And the option was that if you want to ask these kind of questions, you want to do this kind of journalism, then sorry, you can't do it here.
And you were very clear that if there is an interference.
I was very clear. It was, for me, there was no choice. And I found it very surprising, because nothing like this had existed before with this particular corporate house. He was an ideal investor. There was a lot of support. There was no interference. So it's not as if corporates have to interfere. I mean, for example, a lot of big corporates invest in media, but they don't necessarily interfere. I think after 2014 is where the problem happened. I think what's happened is that the Modi government and the Modi BJP is particularly focused on the press. They're particularly focused on journalists. The BJP IT cell is targeting particular journalists. I mean, I'm one of the people who used to be hugely targeted.
Always.
I
think we have seen you more in news for that.
Yeah, I was the troll target number one. I mean, now that I'm not on TV, I'm not that much of a target, thank God. But poor Rajdeep is getting it in the neck day and day out. So, there were 5 of us. I remember there was me, there was Barkha, there was Nidhi, there was, Rajdeep, Ravish. I mean, there was a particular campaign to target us. It was like an organized campaign on social media. In the beginning, I was very confused, because I didn't understand the technology, because you can say something and then you can splice it, and the meaning becomes completely opposite of what you were saying. It's like, I'm talking to you now. If you edit my video and put in different words and all of that, it can become something completely different, and that was happening to me. Videos were being edited, all kinds of, complete falsehoods were being spread about me. And as a woman journalist, particularly, I was very very agitated and hurt at the way my gender identity was being targeted, and I had threats, I had death threats, I had rape threats, I had gang rape threats. It was unbelievable, and that's what I found very disturbing. That why should you target me personally? That you can target my work. You can critique my work, you can critique what I'm writing, or you can critique my journalism. But why should you give threats of rape and death and all of that? And actually, the threats got to such an extent that I filed several police complaints. And I registered FIRs, and those cases are still going on. The police is being is actually being quite sort of proactive. They went and tried to find these people, because it was not just targeting me. They targeted several other, women journalists particularly. There's a problem with, particularly if you're a sort of outspoken woman journalist, or if you're a woman journalist who's somehow seen as liberal. And I identify as a liberal, but that doesn't mean I identify with a political party. Identify with certain principles. I think that neither the Congress nor the BJP nor any other party is liberal. So I'm not espousing the cause of a political party. I'm simply espousing the cause of certain principles. But if you're a female, if you're a woman and you're espousing certain values, or supposing you speak out against certain issues, immediately you're the target number one, and vicious targeting, terribly vicious targeting. I mean, if you see the kind of, it happens so much to me now, but I think, some of the younger women journalists who are out there, it's just horrendous. I mean, the woman journalist who went to cover the Hathras.
Yes, oh my God, it was really,
yeah, when she was there on the spot and she covered the cremation, had it not been for her and her camera, we wouldn't have seen those pictures. And you've seen the way she was targeted, and she was vilified, and the poor girl was so scared. She was, she locked herself in her house for days. So it's very actually quite disturbing what's happening.
I have two questions there. One, when you're saying being targeted, because you have faced it a lot, and especially when it comes to heckling, you have had it. You even see your male colleagues face it. I have seen, especially in your interviews, I remember Mamta Banerjee one. I've seen it a couple of times, how she walked out, because I belong to this, so I quite relate to how she can behave. And I have also seen Rajdeep sir also run after Mamta Banerjee in one of the rallies to interview. How much different is it? Because heckling and misbehavior is heard at both the genders. Women are easily asked about the cases like rapes and all other kind of intimidation you get.
Women are it's more personal. It's much more personal. It's much more how you look, how you speak, how very personal physical details. It's kind of obscene, the manner in which you are targeted. The male journalists are also targeted very badly, but I don't think their physical aspects are targeted in the way that females are.
So mentally, they might not be so harassed as a woman can take it home.
Yeah, you can be harassed mentally, and you can be literally hounded, day in and day out by these organized gangs, who will go after you in the most personal, vicious way. I've seen Ravish getting targeted, but he gets targeted more on what he's saying and his journalism. I would actually say, okay, fine, you can please target me on what I'm saying. Please target me on my journalism, but don't target me on, how I'm, on my physical appearance, on my, on my gender identity, all of that. Because all that becomes vicious and personal, and actually it's deeply violent and regressive. And it's only when this started, that I realized, my God, India is such an unsafe place for women. I had no idea that people were actually publicly willing to say these kind of things,
And how did you deal with it? Because now we have started talking about it so openly, not then when you were facing it.
And in the beginning I was shocked, with somebody openly giving you a threat of gang rape or this kind of sexual assault. This is criminal behavior, right? This is criminal activity. And for people to do this publicly on the net, sometimes, of course, they would hide their names, but sometimes they would not do that. It was shocking for me, and it happened to my daughter. They were targeting my daughter, and they said, we know what time she comes out of school. We know what time. And I was terrified, because at that stage, this was way back to 2005, 2006, and you didn't realize. We had no idea who these people were, what was happening. I thought maybe it was a real threat. I filed a case with the police, and it was terrible. If you see the way, for example, my friend Gauri Lankesh, who was a very good friend of mine, she was targeted like this on the internet by trolls, and she and I used to talk, on the phone, and she would say, well, no, nothing will happen, yeah. She was very bindas, and she said, yeah, these people just talk and nothing will happen. The fact is, she was shot dead, so they came to our house
So
and
did
shot.
it create a fear in you that it made you
Yeah,
take a
it
step
was
back
very
in
scary.
journalism? Yes.
Yes, it was very scary. Because uh, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't really know who these people are, but there are these gangs of people on every available social media platform who are attacking you, and seem to know you very well, seem to know your details. And then when the Gauri, when Gauri was killed, I was terrified. I thought, my God, I mean, she used to be like me. She used to say, oh God, nothing will happen. Yeah, they won't do anything. They can't really do anything. They just bark. Bark is worse than their bite, kind of thing. But then when she was killed, I was really quite scared. So, but I was very fortunate in the sense that I had a good support structure in our office at that time. IBN was very supportive. We were all very supportive to each other, and we didn't know what was happening when all these attacks started, but everyone was very supportive, and everyone really joined together to mount a
Protect each other.
collective sort of defense of this. So we were supportive, and our workplace was very supportive. This government, as I said, is very hostile to certain journalists. They are very hostile to certain journalists who they perceive as sort of anti them or whatever. We are not actually anti anybody. I mean, I'm not anti anybody or pro anybody. I'm just being there as a journalist. But then if everything is subject to a loyalty test, that are you loyal to us, and are you willing to be, to pass some kind of loyalty test to the government, then no, obviously I'm not loyal to any politician. I'm not loyal to any political party. But I remember approaching, then the culture minister was Mahesh Sharma. I think this was back in 2015, 2016. And I kept calling him for an interview, I used to do a show on ET Now called Capital View. And it became clear to me, by then, that it was not going to be possible for me to get this interview.
Okay.
I had known Smriti Irani before she became a minister. I mean, when she was in the opposition, she was on my shows all the time. We were actually on a Hindustan Times leadership panel together. We were on a show together. But it increasingly became clear to me that now that she was in the government, and now that she was a minister, someone like me would have no access. So that's how politicians can control you, right? They can turn off the access. They can say, you will have no access to me. You will be the person who will not get the interviews. You will not be allowed to talk to me. You will not be allowed to interact with me. So therefore, your capacity for journalism becomes less and less. And then I stopped doing my ET Now show because they stopped coming on my shows.
So what is the way ahead if somebody wants to do this kind of thing? You have to either align to the establishment or the government.
Yes, that's the difficulty. That's the difficulty. For example, why do so many TV journalists today, align themselves to the government or align themselves to politicians? Because they want those politicians to come for their shows, come for their interviews. There are 300 plus TV channels now. The politician is the king of the ring because everybody wants him. Everybody wants him for his interview, for his some show, for the award ceremony, for some program, for a nightly discussion. Journalists are running after politicians. And so the politician can use this access, turn it off and turn it on, if he wants to control you. That I won't come to your show, you're anti me. I won't come to your interview, you're anti me. Now that no politicians normally can't do that. For example, in England, you can't have a politician telling the BBC, I won't come to your program because you're not giving my point of view.
Yes.
But now which is why I left TV, because it was very clear to me that it would not be possible for me to do TV journalism because they would not come to my shows. And you ring up I remember running around after Mr. Mahesh Sharma, his PA, his personal secretary, please, can you come to my show? Can you come to my and he wouldn't come. And then at the end of the day, I thought, what the hell, yeah? I mean, this is not worth it.
So Sagarika, there are no true relations in this network. So we say journalists are so powerful. We are all over the power corridor or through our journey scouting information. So are there no true relations that build beyond the boundary of that power and that alliance to any of the team?
With politicians, no. With politicians, you can't have enduring relationships. If you want to do journalism, and you want to and you also, want to sort of question politicians, you're never going to have good relations with them.
It never
You
happens that you just connect with the human
you
there and
can't
you just
you can't do that, because they're subjecting you to loyalty tests every step of the way. And the thing is that, if they want you, they'll call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. If they
yes
don't
they
want you, it's PA se baat karo. साहब घर में नहीं है, साहब
have you
चले
felt rejected that way?
जी,
Have you felt rejected that way?
many times, and it really takes a toll on your self-esteem, which is why I'm really glad I don't do television journalism anymore. Thank God. Because that terrible thing of, sir, please come to my show, please aa jaiye, please bite de dijiye, please interview de dijiye. I'm like, oh God, thank God I don't have to do that anymore with some politician who I don't even respect very much, whose intellect is, is in the lower regions, whose articulation and power of speech and power of thought are not something that I respect. It's only because he's sitting on the gaddi that I have to interview him, and I have to, negate myself in order to get him to speak to me or her to speak to me. And I thought, oh gosh, thank God I don't have to do this anymore. And but it's very difficult for younger journalists, which is why, beat reporters. That is, if you're on a beat, and I've noticed this when I was running a team at IBN, beat reporters tend to become embedded with that particular party. They've almost become spokespersons of that particular party, because if you don't, they're not going to give you access. It's a very undemocratic way of doing things. It's like they don't understand why the media is important and why the press is important. And I think the press also has self-destructed. We only have ourselves to blame, because so many journalists have become loyalists and have become partisans of a particular political party. So but there's a whole lot of stuff to do beyond politics. There's a whole lot of
there are greater stories that can be pulled out.
There's real stories, there's real people, there's issues, there's science, there's education, there's health, and health particularly, is in today's times is a huge issue, is a huge subject. So I think younger journalists should go there.
One question I have with you, you have been bashing TV media. We understand the reason behind it now. The current state of media, what is that one or two things you think that they went terribly wrong, that everybody voiced it against TV now? Like this year particularly, because editorial calls went wrong. They were confused between taking a COVID story to a Sushant Singh Rajput story to a Hathras story. And even the way they handled it, the media hounding, we have seen it through, you have seen it, you've faced it, you've been part of it. But now people have started voicing it, that we cannot stand this kind of a uncivilized behavior by the media people. Even if you're covering a Hathras case, you can't hound the people.
Look at the way the farmers, the protesting farmers at Singhu border, look at the way they're saying, hum Godi media se baat nahi karenge. Godi media wapas jao, So the media itself has covered itself in shame. The TV media has covered itself in shame. Which is the channel now which is genuinely an independent voice? The only channel I can think of is NDTV.
I thought you'd say India Today also.
Rajeev's show, 9 to 10.
Yes.
Switch TV off. If you want to be sane, if you want to raise your blood pressure, if you've got a low blood pressure and you want to raise your blood pressure, watch TV. Watch news TV. But if you don't have a blood pressure problem and you don't want your blood pressure to rise, please switch it off. Because it's wrong, and the stuff they're telling you is lies and is propaganda and is not real. So, and it's basically functioning as a mouthpiece and a propaganda piece of the government. The farmers in Singhu border actually saying कि हम अपनी video चलाएंगे, हम अपनी YouTube चलाएंगे, हम अपनी newspaper निकालेंगे. We will not talk to Godi media.
They have started recognizing. I mean, even a farmer can recognize and identify what is happening.
They don't want to talk to certain channels. They don't want to talk to certain newspapers. And what does that say for journalists? that common people don't want to talk to you. I mean, I think that is a shame. So I think that, I'm very vocal on what's happening to TV. I mean, look at this terrible man whose name we can't mention.
I know.
I mean,
I
he's
know.
really
And
I mean, no,
it's
we can't even mention that name because, but I mean, he's a complete apology and a caricature. And I've known, okay, let's mention the name. I've known Arnab Goswami for years. I used to know him as a junior reporter when he was working with NDTV when he first joined. He's a bright guy. Used to be a young, bright guy. Look at what he's become. He's a complete monster. So, I think the degradation, the degeneration, the kind of utter collapse of values, the ethical crisis, the moral crisis of the media is very, very sad. And I think that, people are realizing it now.
totally. We
So
can
I
get that.
meet so many people who just say we just don't watch it anymore. We're watching either stuff on YouTube or, on social media, getting my social media feed. People are
And
just
different kind of contents. I think people have just got over with news. I love your sari collection.
my
All through your
son.
anchoring days, we have followed your
Yeah.
makeup, sari. I won't go in details now. You tell me what has been your mantra. Is it a conscious effort, or was it unconsciously? You are like a very prim and proper person who loves to
I'm
dress
not
up
prim and
every.
proper at all, but I love wearing saris. I've always, I've always worn saris. And actually, when I started anchoring, I met this very wonderful young designer then called Sanjay Garg. He was doing Raw Mango, and he was just starting Raw Mango, and it was very new and very cheap. Saris are now very expensive. I now ask him, my God, you must be out of your rocker, yeah, if you think I'm paying this kind of money for your saris. But now he's become very expensive. But at that time, he was very reasonable and excellent saris. And he told me that, why don't you start wearing them on air?
Which is
Because
very
then,
rare to see someone wear a sari. You were carrying
yeah.
out like a statement there. It was beautiful.
And I started it because after I started wearing saris, a lot of other anchors then started wearing saris also.
So you consciously picked that up. You
Yeah,
knew
and
that
then
you
he
were.
said, but then he told me that, listen, wear sleeveless blouses, because if you wear proper blouses, you look like one mummy.
I think your blouses were also much appreciated
Yes, yes, yes.
to bring this up to
Hi,
him.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Happy.
Anku. Hi, ma'am. First of all, happy last year 2020 to you.
Yes, happy last day. Thank God
Happy last day.
2020.
I wanted to ask you as a young journalist, I graduated last year. I've just stepped
Congratulations.
into the field. And I just wanted to ask you, do you believe that there's any saving of these mainstream TV channels?
I hope so. I hope they realize. I hope they course correct. But for the moment, it doesn't look good. But I would say for
Yes,
young journalists, you guys must try and explore digital options.
yes,
The
ma'am. That's what I'm doing right now.
is booming. It's bursting with life. There's so many voices. It's so rich. And frankly, who's going to sit through some, government propaganda on some Aaj Tak or, Z or whichever channel? You might as well just switch to great content on digital. I think that's the way to go.